So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Austin Zellner. I get paid for being a principal solution architect at MongoDB. When I come here, it's nice because there are no sales reps, right? And so I get to just sort of be, hey, I'm a data modeler, I'm an enthusiast, and my background is I was a developer for 15 or 20 years, depending on how you count. Most of my career was spending a little bit of time on whiteboards and absolutely loving it, and then going and writing code and absolutely hating it. And it wasn't until I got into sales engineering and I found out that my entire job was drawing on whiteboards with no code that I realized, so it's the design and the modeling part that I really enjoyed. So I've been doing that for a while. I've been with Mongo for a few years. But prior to that, I was working at a company that was half NoSQL back in the days before NoSQL. Anybody familiar with Unidata? Any Unidata folks in the? I tell you, it's a dying breed. Power Builder? All right, okay, that makes me feel better. Thank you. So we're doing Power Builder against Unidata on one side and Power Builder against SQL Server on the other. And so this was in your roll your own ERP system days, and we were doing modeling and applications that existed both in the NoSQL space and in the relational SQL Server world, right? I was there about 7 or 8 years. I spent the first 3 years cursing the Unidata NoSQL side because it made no sense. There were no joins. How do you get anything practically done? And then when we started doing conversion projects and I was doing large amounts of data manipulation, large amounts of data refactoring, Unidata just blew the performance of SQL Server away. And I'm like, okay, there's something here. There's something I'm missing. So when Mongo came calling all these years later, I said, let me guess, the problem that you're running into is that you've got a lot of developers who are used to the SQL world. They're trying to come into the NoSQL world, into the document model, and they're having trouble making that conceptual leap from the relational world to non-relational. And they're like, absolutely. I'm like, I think that's something I can help you with. So that's how we got on that path. I ran into Steve at Mongo World a few years ago. I was super excited because his book is one of the best in the Mongo world for data modeling. He was just this guy in the corner selling books. And I'm like, I love this book. He's like, I wrote this book. And I actually had him sign it and made his daughter take pictures. It was kind of a big moment for me. It was a very fanboy type of thing. And he said, hey, why don't you come to Data Model World? And so I care, data modeling zone. So I came last year and we did an overview of Mongo. This year we kicked off this week with practical data modeling, where we spent 8 hours going through an exhausting detail of how to approach lots of different data models and essentially do those in documents, and specifically in Mongo in some cases. Today, we're going to take a look at something that is in that same space, the same sort of NoSQL world, same sort of document concept, but it bridges in a lot of weird, awkward ways, and that's JSON, okay? JSON exists in this very odd space between interesting hack for JavaScript and full-on enterprise data model, okay? And sort of depending on which way you look at this thing, it can be one, it can be the other, it can be both. But once you have a few kind of fundamental tricks in your bag, approaching modeling documents, and specifically JSON, is not that difficult, right? But if you don't sort of know where to start with this thing, your relational muscle memory is going to kick in, and you're going to go, I don't even know where to begin with this. This is horrible. Get it out of my organization. Okay. We don't really have time. Generally, if we had more time, I'd want to kind of go through the room and understand, why you're here and what you're looking for. I'm assuming if you're here at this point, you want to know how to model JSON. Is there anybody who that's not their goal, because otherwise get out now? No? We good? Okay. All right. First and foremost, let's not complicate a ham sandwich here. Okay. When we talk about JSON, really all you're doing is building key value pairs, arrays, and grouping them together in subgroups that are called objects, but it's really just arrays of more key value pairs. Okay. If you go online and you look for JSON and how do I approach JSON and what's the history of JSON, it gets all blended together in a couple of different ways. It gets lumped in with Ajax and JavaScript, and the argument that, well, if you don't understand JavaScript and if you're not using Ajax, you're really not going to get it. It also gets lumped into the NoSQL flame wars of, Mongo versus Couch versus Hadoop versus JSON data type versus string parsing. It gets messy quick, okay? And it can be difficult to find your floor. If you just come back and look at the stuff, right? The beauty of JSON is this. It's very simple. What you see is what you get. It's human readable. It's very easy to serialize and send over the wire. Every language has a way of decomposing it and recomposing it, okay? So it's this really handy sort of utility way to trade data back and forth, either between applications or store it long-term for databases, or just give you a little notational way of storing data in the modern world, okay? Where it is a tremendous pain in the butt is that it is absolutely 100% unforgiving from a syntax standpoint. If you do not like braces and curly brackets and commas and double quotes, this will drive you crazy, all right? And that it just takes some getting used to, right? So as we go through this, just always sort of remember, like, if you're getting confused on where to go, just go look at a raw JSON document and sort of think about that, right? Now, where we're going to go today, we're going to talk about a little bit of the history of JSON, JSON versus XML. Then we're going to sort of pivot and talk about what does the actual specification look like, what are the boundary conditions. We're going to do I've got a JSON document, how do I reverse that back and normalize it? And then we're going to start with a traditional normalized data model, claims and customers' claims and policies, and how do we move forward and turn that into JSON, okay? And then at the end of that, we'll have Q&A. I'm very verbose. I've got a clock going to help remind me of where we are on time, but I will be checking in with you if you have questions as we go, okay? Before we go any further, does anybody have a burning thing like their boss is going to be calling them at the end of this meeting with a specific question? Is there anything we want to make sure we cover off on? No? Okay, excellent. Okay, so JSON is one of these things. I'm going to grab a thing of water here real quick.